You booked your flight, you paid every fee the airline listed, and you walked away thinking that was the full price. It wasn't. Airlines quietly waive certain fees for senior travelers every single day, and most passengers never even ask, so the airline never offers. That silence is not an accident, it is a business strategy. And it works because confident travelers assume they already know the rules. Meanwhile, the travelers who ask a single extra question at the counter often walk away with a lighter bill, a better seat, or a service that was free the entire time, while everyone else in line simply pays whatever number appears on the screen without a second thought. Today we are exposing 7 hidden fee waivers that airlines rarely mention out loud, the kind of savings that stay buried deep in policy pages. Nobody reads and gate agents rarely bring up first. Some of these waivers can save you real money on a single trip, and one of them can protect your health equipment from a fee most seniors pay without question every single year. Stay with us, because waiver number 1 changes how you should be handling refunds forever. And waiver number 4 alone can remove hours of exhausting walking from your next connection. Hit like if you are ready to stop overpaying for flights, and let's begin. Before we continue, if you want more videos like this one, showing exactly where airlines hide savings for senior travelers, subscribe to Fly Smart After 70 and turn on notifications, because we publish a new hidden travel advantage every single week, and missing one could cost you on your very next flight. Waiver 1, free priority boarding for passengers needing extra boarding time. You watch families with strollers walk on early, you watch premium cabin passengers walk on early, and you assume regular economy seniors simply wait in line like everyone else. That assumption costs comfort and sometimes costs safety. Most major airlines allow priority boarding at no extra charge for any passenger who needs additional time getting to their seat, and age alone can qualify you, especially when combined with a slower walking pace or difficulty with overhead bins. The problem is that almost nobody announces this option clearly at the gate, so travelers who could board early instead stand in a crowded line, rushing to stow bags before the aisle fills completely. Gate announcements typically mention families and premium passengers by name, yet rarely say the phrase "any passenger needing additional boarding time," even though that exact phrase is often written directly into the airline's own accessibility guidelines. That rushed boarding often means limited overhead space, awkward maneuvering, and unnecessary stress before the flight even begins. Airlines rarely advertise this waiver because encouraging early boarding requests slows down their preferred boarding sequence, and a quieter boarding process protects their schedule, not your comfort. Smart travelers request priority boarding directly at check-in or at the gate counter, simply by asking if extra boarding time is available for their situation, and in most cases, the gate agent will grant it without hesitation. This single request can mean a calmer walk down the jet bridge, a guaranteed spot for your carry-on, and a seated position before the aisle turns into a bottleneck. It costs nothing, it takes seconds to ask, and it removes one of the most physically stressful parts of modern air travel. Some airlines even list this option quietly inside their accessibility policy page, described in vague language like additional time needed for boarding, without ever using the words priority or senior, which is exactly why so few travelers stumble onto it by accident. Gate agents are generally happy to grant the request because a calmer boarding process actually helps them too, reducing last-minute aisle congestion and delayed departures caused by passengers still stowing bags after the doors are meant to close. The mistake most seniors make is assuming that asking for help signals weakness, when in reality, it simply uses a service the airline already built and already staffed for exactly this purpose. Once you experience one calm, unhurried boarding, going back to the crowded scramble feels unnecessary. And many travelers say they wish they had started asking years earlier. But the next waiver hides inside a fee category most seniors pay without ever questioning it. Waiver 2, Hidden Medical Equipment Baggage Fee Waiver for Seniors. You pack your mobility cane, your walker, your oxygen concentrator, or your CPAP machine, and you brace yourself for another baggage charge on top of everything else. Here is what almost nobody tells you. Medically necessary equipment is not counted as regular luggage under most airline policies, and it should not be billed as an extra bag at all. Walkers, wheelchairs, canes, hearing aid supplies, and approved respiratory devices typically travel free, separate from your standard baggage allowance. Yet counter agents sometimes bundle them in with regular bags out of habit or confusion. That mistake alone has cost travelers real money at the counter, simply because nobody corrected the charge in the moment. Airlines rarely explain this policy loudly because most passengers never challenge a fee once it appears on the screen, and a fee left unquestioned is a fee collected. This pattern repeats across nearly every airline, budget carriers and full-service carriers alike, because the counter system often defaults to treating any additional item as a chargeable bag, unless someone manually applies the medical exemption code before the transaction finalizes. Smart travelers write down the specific medical baggage policy from the airline website before departure, and if a fee for medical equipment appears at check-in, they calmly reference that policy and ask for it to be removed. In most cases, the fee disappears the moment it is questioned with confidence. This is not a workaround. It is simply the policy working the way it was designed to work all along. Some travelers keep a printed copy of the policy in their travel folder, right next to their boarding pass, so there is no scrambling to find the right wording, while a line forms behind them at the counter. Others take a screenshot on their phone before leaving home, which works just as well and takes less than a minute to prepare. The key detail most seniors miss is that this waiver usually applies per device, not per trip, meaning a walker and an oxygen concentrator can both travel free on the same journey, without counting against each other or against your regular baggage allowance. Airlines rely on travelers not knowing this distinction, because every unquestioned charge quietly adds up across thousands of passengers every single day. Once you know the exact wording of your airline's policy, the entire conversation at the counter becomes calm instead of stressful, and calm conversations tend to get resolved far faster than confused, frustrated ones. But the next waiver becomes even more important once you are already seated and trying to choose where. Waiver 3, Seat Selection Fee Exemption for Passengers with Mobility Needs. You open the seat map, you see extra charges attached to almost every seat with real legroom, and you assume paying is the only path to comfort. For passengers with documented mobility needs, that assumption is often wrong. Airlines commonly waive standard seat selection fees for travelers who require specific seating due to mobility limitations, including aisle access for easier movement or proximity to accessible restrooms. This exemption exists partly because of accessibility regulations, yet the option rarely appears as a clear button during normal online booking, so most travelers never realize it exists until they call and ask directly. The online seat map is simply not built to display accommodations, since it is designed primarily to sell upgrades, which means the only reliable way to access this benefit is through a direct conversation with a live representative rather than the website or app. Paying for seat selection when you did not need to is one of the quietest ways airlines collect extra revenue from senior travelers because the interface makes it look mandatory even when it is not. Smart travelers call the airline directly, explain their mobility situation honestly, and request an accessible seat assignment without the usual selection fee attached. Agents are trained to accommodate these requests, and in most cases, the fee is waived immediately once the need is stated clearly. This single phone call can save real money on longer flights where premium seat fees climb noticeably higher. Comfort should not depend on luck, and for many seniors, it does not have to once the right request is made through the right channel. It helps to describe the need specifically rather than vaguely, mentioning things like difficulty standing for long periods, trouble reaching overhead bins, or a need to be near the restroom, since specific language tends to move the request through faster than a general comment about preferring more space. Some airlines route these requests to a dedicated accessibility desk rather than the general booking line, and asking directly for that desk can save considerable time on the phone. Travelers who make this call well before departure rather than at the airport counter tend to have far more seat options available since accessible seating is limited and fills quickly closer to departure day. A 5-minute phone call made a week in advance can be the difference between a comfortable flight and a genuinely painful one. But the next hidden benefit removes an entire layer of physical strain from the airport experience itself. Waiver 4, free airport wheelchair, an escort service without extra charges. You picture a wheelchair request as something reserved for passengers who cannot walk at all, so you push through long terminals on tired legs instead of asking for help. That mindset costs energy that could have been saved for the actual trip ahead. Wheelchair and escort assistance through security, to the gate, and between connecting flights is completely free at every major airport, and it is available to any senior who requests it, regardless of how far they can technically walk on their own. This service exists specifically to reduce fatigue, confusion, and missed connections for older travelers. Yet many seniors avoid requesting it simply because they feel embarrassed, or assume it is only for passengers with severe disabilities. In reality, airport staff see this request dozens of times a day from healthy, independent travelers who simply want to preserve their energy for the destination rather than spend it navigating a mile of unfamiliar terminal corridors under time pressure. Airlines rarely promote this service loudly because it requires staffing, and quiet demand keeps staffing needs lower and predictable. Smart travelers request wheelchair or escort assistance when booking the flight, or at least 24 hours before departure, by calling the airline directly or noting it during online check-in. This single request can transform a long layover from an exhausting sprint between gates into a calm, guided walk with someone else managing the pace and the directions. There is no shame in asking, there is only comfort gained and stress removed, and it costs absolutely nothing beyond making the request in advance. Some travelers worry that requesting a wheelchair means they will be placed in a general waiting area and forgotten, but airlines actually track these requests closely, since a missed connection caused by their own staffing failure creates far more cost and complaint than simply assigning enough escorts in the first place. On longer international connections, this service can also include being guided directly through customs and immigration lines, which shortens what is often the most confusing and exhausting part of an overseas trip. Even travelers who normally walk without difficulty often find that requesting an escort through an unfamiliar, oversized airport saves both time and confusion, since the escort already knows every shortcut through the terminal. Once booked, the service typically appears automatically at check-in without needing to repeat the request at every stage of the journey. But the next waiver lives inside frequent flyer programs most seniors barely explore. Waiver 5, Senior Companion Award Redemption Discount in Frequent Flyer Programs. You collect miles for years. You assume redeeming them always costs the same number of points, regardless of who you fly with. And for many seniors, that assumption quietly wastes thousands of miles every year. Several major frequent flyer programs offer reduced mile requirements or companion discounts specifically for senior members traveling with another passenger, especially on award bookings. This benefit rarely appears during a normal points search because the discounted rate is often only visible after selecting a senior membership tier or applying a specific companion code during checkout. Airlines are not eager to highlight this reduction publicly, since fewer miles spent per trip means members can fly further and more often on the same balance, which slightly reduces overall revenue from paid tickets. Smart travelers log into their frequent flyer account, check their membership tier for any senior or companion benefit, and specifically search using companion booking tools rather than standard mile redemption alone. In many cases, this single adjustment can unlock significantly better value from miles that have been sitting unused for years. It rewards loyalty the way it was originally intended, instead of letting valuable points quietly lose worth over time. Many seniors accumulated these miles over decades of work travel, family visits, and holiday trips, only to let the balance sit untouched because standard redemption rates for 2 passengers seemed too expensive to justify. Checking for a senior or companion discount can sometimes cut the required miles for a second traveler nearly in half, which effectively means 2 people flying for close to the price of 1 in points. Program rules do change from year to year, so it is worth checking this benefit again, even if a search months ago came back with nothing useful, since airlines quietly add and adjust these companion categories without sending a direct notification to members. Some programs also allow the senior member to be either the primary traveler or the companion, meaning the discount can apply even when a son, daughter, or grandchild is technically the one holding the loyalty account. A short call to the loyalty program support line, specifically asking about senior companion redemption rates, often uncovers value that a basic online search misses entirely. But the next waiver appears only when travel plans suddenly fall apart without warning. Waiver 6, Same-Day Flight Change Fee Waiver During Medical Disruptions. You wake up feeling unwell on travel day, and your first thought is panic about losing the ticket entirely, or paying a steep change fee just to move to a later flight. Most major airlines quietly waive same-day change fees for passengers dealing with a documented medical situation, allowing a shift to a different flight time without the usual penalty charge. This waiver exists because forcing a genuinely unwell passenger to fly on schedule creates larger problems for the airline, including onboard medical incidents and delayed departures. Yet the policy is almost never mentioned during normal booking or check-in conversations because promoting it too heavily could invite misuse from travelers without a genuine medical concern. Passengers who do not know this waiver exists often pay full change fees out of panic, simply because nobody at the counter volunteered the alternative. Smart travelers who feel unwell on travel day call the airline directly, explain the medical situation honestly, and specifically ask whether a same-day change fee waiver applies to their circumstance. In many cases, agents can move the booking to a later flight the same day without charging the standard fee, especially when the request is calm, clear, and made early rather than at the very last minute. This waiver will not appear automatically on any screen. It appears only when a traveler knows to ask for it by name. Documentation requirements vary by airline, and some agents will simply take a verbal description of the situation, while others may ask for basic confirmation once you have safely landed and settled. Either way, the request itself rarely takes more than a few minutes on the phone, especially compared to the stress of trying to fly while genuinely unwell, or the expense of paying a full change fee out of panic. Travel insurance can sometimes cover a portion of these situations as well, but the airline waiver often applies faster, and without any claim paperwork at all, making it the first call worth making before reaching for an insurance policy. Keeping the airline's customer service number saved directly in your phone, rather than searching for it while stressed, can save precious minutes on a morning when every minute already feels like too much. But the final waiver on this list quietly returns money that many travelers never realize they overpaid in the first place. Waiver 7. Hidden refund of duplicate ancillary fees after booking. You book a flight, add a bag fee, add a seat fee, and later make a small change, only to discover the system charged some of those same fees a second time without you noticing. Duplicate ancillary charges happen more often than most travelers realize, especially when a booking is modified, split across multiple confirmation numbers, or adjusted through a call center rather than the original booking channel. Even a simple seat change made by a phone agent can accidentally trigger a brand new fee instead of updating the original charge, leaving both the old amount and the new amount sitting on the same account without anyone noticing until the statement arrives. Airlines do not proactively search for these duplicate charges and refund them automatically, because doing so would require reviewing every modified booking manually, and that review only happens when a passenger specifically requests it. This is one of the most overlooked forms of overpayment in modern air travel, quietly draining small amounts of money from thousands of bookings every single day. Smart travelers review their full billing statement after any flight change, comparing every charge line by line against what they actually selected. And if a bag fee, seat fee, service charge appears more than once for the same flight segment, they contact the airline directly and request a refund for the duplicate. In most cases, once the duplicate is clearly identified, the refund is processed without argument, because airlines generally prefer a quiet refund over a public complaint. This simple habit of checking your statement carefully can recover money that would otherwise disappear completely unnoticed. It helps to keep every confirmation email from a booking, since comparing the original confirmation against the final charged amount is the fastest way to spot a duplicate without needing to remember every detail from memory. Some travelers set a simple reminder to review their statement exactly 1 week after any flight change, giving the airline system enough time to finalize charges while still leaving plenty of time to dispute anything incorrect. Credit card statements can also be a useful backup, since they sometimes show duplicate charges more clearly than the airline's own booking history page. None of this requires special software or a background in finance. It only requires a few extra minutes of attention that most travelers never think to spend. And those few minutes are often worth more per hour than most people earn at their actual jobs. 7 hidden waivers. 7 ways airlines quietly protect their bottom line by staying silent. And 7 ways you can now protect your wallet by simply knowing what to ask for. Thanks for watching Fly Smart After 70. Travel confidently, ask the right questions, and never let silence cost you money the airline was always willing to waive. Every trip you take from now on can carry a little less financial stress and a little more comfort, simply because you now know exactly which words to say at the counter, on the phone, and at the gate. Save this video before your next flight, share it with a friend or family member who travels often, and come back next week for another set of hidden savings most travelers never discover on their own, because the airlines are not going to start announcing these waivers loudly anytime soon, so someone has to keep asking on your behalf, and that someone can simply be you.